to host you at the 69th Aadharshila Talks at RRIS. It is 3:30 and without any delay, following the work ethics and the personal ethics of Mr. Kiran Gandhi, we would begin right now. Let me formally introduce the speaker, Sri Kiran Gandhi ji. He is a facilitator and trustee at Initiatives of Change. Graduated from IIT Mumbai in 1971, he went on to do his MBA from XLRI Jamshedpur, worked with Tata Motors at the start of his career and with 3 other top companies after that. Meeting initiatives of change at a young age inspired an aim in his life to work for a better society. He is a regular course director and facilitator of programs at the Initiatives of Change campus at Panchgani. He is one of those who launched the Education Today, Society Tomorrow, known as the ETST program, amongst the educators for teachers in 1992. He lives in Pune with his wife. Sir, we are delighted and indeed privileged and honored to have you as an Aadharshila speaker. This is Dr. Jaya Parekh, the principal of Ramratna International School, on behalf of my entire school family, extending a warm welcome and gratitude to you. Friends, today's topic is something which we have not touched in any way at Aadharshila Talks, though we have had 69 brilliant speakers speaking on diverse, much needed topics. Today's topic will make you realize that even as educators, how important it is for each one of us as teachers, as school leaders, as trustees to know about the organization culture, how it benefits all of us to have its understanding. In Sir's words, the prevailing organization culture could have helpful as well as not so helpful aspects. Specific interventions can reinforce the positive aspects of the prevailing culture. HR policies are one such intervention. Initiatives could be taken to change the unhelpful aspects of an organization's culture. I couldn't have put it so well. And without any further delay and ado, I would request and invite Sri Kiran Gandhi ji to take over this virtual platform. Over to you, sir. Once again, thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much, Jayaji. Well, actually, it's a privilege for me to be here because I have seen something of the list of very eminent speakers you have had before me. So putting me in the company of all those eminent speakers is my privilege, indeed.
That's very humble of you and kind of you to say, sir. Yes, we have had excellent speakers.
Yes,
no doubt about it, including yourself.
I was able to realize that. Now, when you ask me to give a talk or speak with the educators that you have, in this forum, I think you meet once a month.
So we meet every Monday?
Every Monday.
Yes.
Okay. And so I just wondered, what could be the subject which might be relevant, especially because all of you are school leaders in different capacities. And as leaders, not only are you interested and have a commitment to doing the best you can in the classrooms, but what more can you do for the organization as a whole or the institution as a whole, which then becomes its strength. So that's why, and based on my own background, which you just shared, I felt this could be a possible subject which could be of relevance, because I think after all, school systems are also nothing but organizations. And although my experience with school systems is rather limited, but with organizations, I have those years behind me. So I thought I'll do that. So I do hope it has relevance and is of some value. So
totally relevant, sir, and we are all excited to listen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I will like to now share a PowerPoint slide, just to get us going. So give me a moment. I'll do the sharing. So are you able to see this first slide? All of you?
Yes,
Jayaji, are you able to see it?
Yes, sir, we can.
All right. So, well, this is only the topic. And so, there is this word culture, organization culture. And let's start by exploring what does it really mean. And, there are several definitions. When you go through literature on organization culture, you will find it is defined in many different ways. But based on my understanding and my experience, I have tried to put the meaning of organization culture in these words here. It is the set of widely held assumptions and beliefs held by people in the organization which cause a pattern of behaviors, sometimes referred to as that's the way we do things around here. So organizational cultures are essentially the assumptions and beliefs which a majority, one can say, in that organization hold, which are the cause of a certain set of patterns of behavior. And sometimes one says, well, that's the way we do things around here. So to remember this easily, I thought one can use this formula A plus B equal to C. That is, assumptions and beliefs together create culture. They cause the behaviors, which we sometimes refer to as culture. So some characteristics of organizational cultures are that they often tend to be invisible to those who are inside the organization or who have been part of the organization for a long time. They're like the air they breathe. So there is certain amount of invisibility, and these assumptions and beliefs, which are the foundation of the culture, exercise a strong influence on norms of what one may call acceptable or non-acceptable behaviors, or the way people take roles. What is the degree to which they will assume certain roles, or where they will stop, as to where my role ends. Then the degree of delegation, the degree of innovation, or the degree to which people would be willing to take risks to innovate. And then, of course, the way conflicts are handled. There are different ways in which conflicts can be handled. We are all aware of it. Some of the approaches like confronting, or like, just discussing, persuading, and so on. So all these aspects of behavior are the manifestations of the culture. And sometimes we use phrases like, well, that's not the way to do things out here. It may have been okay where you came from, but not here. So these are nothing but indicative of what is our culture, so to say, for any organization. Then I think this was something, Jayaji, you already mentioned. Why should school leaders try to understand organizational cultures? And you have already mentioned this, that some aspects of the organization culture are the strength of the organization, but some of them may not be. And if we are able to distinguish, then we have the possibility to strengthen the positive aspects, of the culture. And since my career was in the HR area, human resources, I've seen how human resource policies can, be a very important way to strengthen some of the cultural aspects. And then there are possibilities of initiatives which one can take to change the aspects which are the unhelpful aspects. And I'll share some of my own experiences in this regard. But the question arises because when I mentioned before that there is a sort of an invisibility about of the culture to those who have been in it for a long time. So how could those aspects be recognized? So maybe I should actually ask this question and wait for an answer. Is there anyone amongst you who can say something as to how can the not so good aspects of our culture be recognized?
The participants may feel free to unmute themselves and speak up.
Yes, that would be nice if I hear one or two voices.
So until then, what I feel I may share one of the ways that can help us to identify or recognize the dysfunctionalities is the openness to feedback from all the stakeholders. So for a school, being open to the feedback of students, parents, staff, and everyone, it could bring to light some of the areas where we are not functioning very well, but we have been blind to it for whatever reasons.
Right. Absolutely.
Feedback.
Very much. Yes, feedback can be very helpful if we are open
by
to
widening opportunities for open and honest communication.
Sure. So provided one is, of course, open to hearing feedback, which is probably not very complimentary, but that can help. Yes. If there's any other thought.
Any other participant would like to share their thoughts? Smita ma'am says communication.
Essentially,
frequent communication. Yes.
Essentially. Anyway, I'll move on and we can discuss a little at the end. So actually, it is also determined a lot by how organization cultures are formed. So organization cultures actually get formed over a period of time. Whatever culture you have today would have got formed over a period of time, maybe from the time of the inception of the organization. They are influenced by a number of factors. The organization's history, the size, the nature of work which the organization does, the stakeholder expectations. In your case, it would be expectations of the management, the parents, the community, the students, or the teaching and non-teaching staff. Values of the founders and leaders, they play a very powerful role in giving shape to the organizational cultures. And nowadays, technology also plays a very important role. So it's a complex interplay of factors which build an organization's culture. And then once the organization culture has matured, there is a tendency for it to remain static, even in the face of changes which have taken place in some of the other aspects. Like the size of the organization may have changed. It may have been a very small organization for a period of time, and then it grew. But the culture which had set in when it was small may perpetuate, may be appropriate and may not be appropriate when the size has grown. Then stakeholder expectations may have changed. It's like government is also stakeholder. Its policies may have changed, or technology would have changed. So a conscious effort to recognize what has changed in any of these aspects is important for organization leaders. And one of the ways in which you can recognize some of these need for change, a need to change, is by listening to some of the members of the organization who sometimes stand out as rebels or as oddballs. They in every organization has some who are a bit non-conformist, and they may have things to say which they are trying to get across. So listening to some of these kind of members of the organization can be very helpful, and they may offer clues as to what really is going on, and where the change may be called for. So, of course, you recognize in these different ways that we need to review our organization culture. But how could the change be actually carried out? So I'll just go on to that. And for me, my experiments in this area started with my encounter with initiatives of change, which Jayaji just mentioned. I think you have had previous speakers, some of the speakers who are associated with initiatives of change. Some of them are from the educators community, and I think you also had Suresh Khatri, which is what I got to know. You would have heard of.
Just for our new viewers,
Yes.
It's an international NGO which works with the vision of building bridges across world's divides.
Right.
Beautiful vision.
And initiatives of change we abbreviate as IoFC. It has a few fundamental tenets, one of which is change must start with oneself to be effective. We want to bring change in any situation, even in our own families. The best place to make a start is with one's own self, through a process of self-examination. And its mission is, yes, what Jayaji said, putting it another way, it is about addressing global needs through personal change. So personal change is at the heart of initiatives of change. So I encountered it, while I was still getting through my graduation at IIT in Mumbai. And I decided to experiment with these ideas, and especially the idea of listening to my inner voice for guidance, to guide my choices, guide my life, to recognize my true self. So that's the way my journey had begun. And just to refresh for those who are possibly not well acquainted with initiatives of change, what it really offers or suggests is what I will like to share. It's basically about an inside-out change leadership that it tries to encourage in all of us, in all the different situations we are part of. And it has three major stages, you can say, of passing one's own thoughts through, and as a daily process, more or less. Connection, correction, direction, CCD in short. Just very quickly, connection is the process of spending some time daily to sit in silence and listen to our own inner voice and seek guidance from within about various things that matter to us. So we basically encourage about 20 minutes a day of this process of connecting with that. You can call it connecting with one's own soul and listening to it. Then the next thing which may happen, not every day maybe, but is what we call correction. That is where if we have made some mistakes, have behaved wrongly, and we feel from within that, well, that was not right on my part. The process of correction encourages us to accept our mistakes and make necessary corrections, maybe an apology. Why? Because by doing that, you win the trust, as a leader, because being trusted, as we would all agree, is so important for being effective in any form of leadership. And when we admit our mistakes, actually we become more trustworthy. So this is, and walking the talk, that means we say what we do, and we do what we say. And then, so there is this simple framework which initiatives of change offers for making corrections of 4 standards, which are referred to as absolute purity, honesty, unselfishness, and love. I'm not going to elaborate just now, but each of them is a facet of our character, and also each of them is very important, a vital aspect of the health of the society. What is the degree of purity, in the society in terms of minds of people, degree of honesty, or the selflessness. So the higher the degree, the healthier is the society, and of course, the shortfall represents the need for change. So that is, and then direction. The 4th aspect is where the time that we spend in silence is also the time when we can seek inner wisdom. We get thoughts. Oh, this is something that I can take on today, and especially direction which comes from a higher purpose. If we take on a higher purpose in life of making a difference to society or doing something which is positive, so initiatives of change can come out of this process. And many of us who are part of this try and do this every day. I try to do this every day. And so this was the beginning. Adopting this practice was my beginning in my life of of sort of thinking of change, or working for change for a better society, as an important mission, so to say. And since I was graduating in engineering, I was naturally gravitating towards the situation in industry. And of course, the situation now may not be, and is not exactly the same. But the idea is that we can consider devoting our lives to bringing some change which is necessary, which we see as necessary. So in that period of time, we had this kind of a situation. Industry was suffering from what one may call state of paralysis due to adversarial relations between employers and workers. And this was widespread. The poor industrial relations were the cause of poor productivity, poor quality, and also growing unemployment. So it was quite a, I would say, national loss kind of a situation for all the investment which was made into industry. And so in my times of silence, I started to wonder, could this culture be changed? To begin with, in one organization, so like experiment somewhere. And so this, in a way, it started with my looking at my own life and taking steps of change in my own life. One of which was returning something which I had stolen from my college laboratory, from my institute laboratory. My inner voice told me, these things which essentially lead to corruption. I dealt with some jealousies which I held towards my brothers. So these were some personal change steps I had taken. But then I started looking at the larger needs around. And my natural attention went into industry because I was an engineer. And so my first experiments happened to be by joining the company called Tata Motors in Jamshedpur. I worked there for 14 years. So I'd like to share something of the sort of situation we had there. And some of the initiatives which I felt I could take and I took. And just to give you an idea of every organization has its own size, situation, history, and all that. So these are some of the major aspects that I was looking at that time. A very large organization, 24,000 employees it had out there. And there was this alienation which I talked about between the employer or the management of the company and the workers. There was considerable mistrust, and the mistrust between the labor and the workers and the management was exploited by union leaders by trying to play the middleman, to patch up situations but extracting their own price. So this was very complex. There was rampant indiscipline, people not coming to work on time, and many other forms of indiscipline, shortcuts at work, confrontation, strikes, and whatnot. So all this was a setback to production, productivity, and quality. And in that period of time, because it was a protected economy, one could just get away with, so to say, not the best quality or high prices, but one could not compete, in the international or globalized arena. So this was the situation, and so I decided, can I do something? That was my thought, and so my initial experiment was in my own department. I was posted in a particular department with 240 employees, and there was a few guiding thoughts which in IoFC I learned, and also by some reading, that one guiding thought was that large doors swing on small hinges, which we are aware of. But what it really means is here that even in a very complex or bad situation, if you want to bring change, then there are always some key people, if you work with, if you are able to identify, who are sometimes called opinion leaders. The rest follow those few who are the hinges, the hinge people. So that was one thought. The second important thought was from a reading of a very well-known book called Megatrends, and it's a book worth reading for any of you who are interested. Its author passed away only early this year. He has talked about, he's kind of a futurologist, 10 new directions transforming our lives. And one of them, one of those mega trends is what he has written about is change would be led by networks and not hierarchies. So what it means is, in the organization, we normally look upon a pyramid, and we look upon leadership at the top, and we say that if any change has to come, it has to come by somebody right at the top doing something about it. But in this book, he says that that is not the way things are going to happen in future. People in the organization at any level who are concerned would network together and would exercise a certain influence as a network, and the change that they would bring would be the kind of change which would really work. So this idea I found very interesting. So I said to myself, let me look for the hinge people and network with them. I hope you're getting this point. It's a very important point that in any organization, there are always people, some are at the higher level, some are at the very one can say the junior most levels, but who have a sense of concern, and who, if they can get together, they become a network, and then they can exercise influence. So I said, let me try this out. And so I noticed that while, yes, of course, the managers of my department were very important, and I fortunately had a good manager who also was concerned about the situation, and who was desirous of changing it. But on his own, he was helpless. So I found that there were a couple of union leaders, leaders of these workmen. The photograph you see is one of them. So I when you go around, you can feel who has influence and who is listened to more, and has that sort of sway. So this particular person at that time, whose name is C.P. Singh, I found he is quite an influence. And there was one more whose photograph I don't have, who was an official union leader. And this gentleman here was so-called an informal leader, but very influential. So I befriended both these people, and I introduced myself. I shared a little bit of my own background. I also shared with them how in my life I had to look at things which were wrong, and like stealing and jealousy, which I had tried to overcome. And then I went on to, of course, over a period of time, and with a few meetings with them here and there, all in the workspace, I was kind of able to induce in them thought that the situation we have, do you feel it's a good situation, that there's so much of confrontation, and every now and then there are work stoppages? Is it good for all of us? So they said, no, it is not good for all of us. So slowly I said, then what can we do? And so through this process of dialogue with them, in fact, we became very friendly. They even invited me to their homes. And all this was a very new experience for me, because I grew up in a family of senior managers. My father was very senior manager in companies. But the encounter with these men was very new to me. But I just followed the thoughts which came to me. And the whole idea was, can these people be enlisted to change the bad situation? Change the culture. The culture was a very stressed culture. And how could that be changed? And eventually, over a few months of this sort of a process of befriending them and sharing my own life, facets of my life, they opened up to me. And I'm talking of they basically as two different people. And these two who I'm referring to, they were rivals, and they were not on talking terms. They had their own groups. So the first step that I suggested to them is that, if you really want to bring change, do you think you should work together? And they slowly accepted that. And eventually, they decided that we would like to bring the change. So they called a meeting in a open space outside the company premises, and there were 240 of them. They called all of them together, their followers, and they addressed them together which had never happened, and they told their followers, who were all the workers, saying that up to now we have only just fought with each other. We have only tried to see how we can score points over each other, and as a result, our lives have become very unhappy, and we have also done great disservice to the company. Let us now change this, and let us take our responsibilities more seriously, because we are producing these trucks and buses, each of which creates an employment for 13 people on an average. And by doing good work and producing more of these vehicles, we can also help the country address unemployment. So this is the way they spoke. I'm just summarizing. One by one, they spoke, both of them, who were rivals. And it had an electric effect. Although they were a bit suspicious whether this is real, but all these gathered, workers, they saw something new. And as a result, the kind of situation which had prevailed before, that means, the productivity was very poor. They would never be able to finish their annual production targets, year after year. But after this change took place, the production target for the entire year was completed within 9 months. And the management, with whom also I used to interact, because I was an engineer working out there, also were very happy. They were, of course, very surprised that such a change was possible. And there was a new harmony between management and the workers, because these people also said that hereafter, whatever differences we have with the management, we'll have dialogue and we'll solve all the problems through dialogue. So this was a story which was, in a way, I would say, my laboratory experiment in one department of this large company, to bring a change in the atmosphere, the working environment. But then what happened was, the company wanted to scale up this sort of a work, and they invited me to join the training department. Now, this is something which was very unexpected for me. And the head of training told me that we believe that the kind of work you have done in your department, if it is scaled up through training more people, we can really make a larger impact. So we would really be happy if you can join the training department. So after some thought and listening to my inner voice, I accepted it. I left my engineering field and I entered this area, which is part of human resource management, really. And after joining the training department, I started thinking, how can one really influence this large system? Because one department is okay, but this is a large system of 24,000 employees. And that is where the idea came to me of introducing a uniquely different training program, and that was called Human Relations at Work. Now, just to give you briefly, this was a program of 3 days, which was a combined training program for managers, union leaders, and workers, which had never happened and which actually rarely happens. Managers have their own program, the workers have their own program, and so on. But they don't sit together in the same classroom for a common program. Like in a school, I wonder if you would have teachers and the non-teaching staff attending the same program. I think I know of one one school here in Pune, Mrs. Kumar's School Orchid, which does something like this. They have an annual retreat where all the staff, teaching, non-teaching, they spend a 3 days retreat together. But there may be more. But anyway, this program of human relations at work was so effective because the kind of disputes people had in the relationship and the mistrust which had grown started to be dissolved in the classroom, because they were sitting together and learning the same thing together. And very often discussions to resolve things happen in conference rooms. But the experience here was that the training classroom is much more effective than any conference room if you want to solve issues. And this is what it started happening. And this was scaled up because the initial results were very good. And of course, fortunately, my top management, they supported this idea. Without that, this wouldn't have happened. And they supported it, they encouraged it, and as a result, we were able to train 24,000, all the employees of the company in 7 years, in batches of the program. Large numbers of batches were run. And of course, for this, we had to train trainers. So that was another thing which was done. So internal trainers were identified and trained to deliver the program. And so the training of human relations at work created in everyone a sense of desire to bring change in the culture, which was prevalent. But to get it actually implemented, another thing was done, and that was called a small group activity. So that time the Japanese had a system called quality circles. Many of you may have heard of it. So we made an adaptation of it. So what was done was that these workers, their supervisors who had attended the program, they were encouraged to form small groups of 10 to 12 members, mixed groups. These were voluntary groups which could meet once a week for one hour in work time. So every week for 1 hour in work time, they were given the sort of empowerment to meet, to identify what are the common problems they have in the workspace, and then they were trained to resolve those problems in systematic ways. So there is training for that. So these small group activities, they played a big role in improving the quality of work and also quality of life, because not only did situations in the workspaces change, in terms of harmony, productivity, better quality of work, but the families of these people also got influenced, because the same spirit which was generated in the workspace was carried home by these people. And we had so many stories of how issues in families got resolved by applying the same principles in family situations. So anyway, it's a large story, but what were some of the lessons I have drawn? This may be important for us, that if we want to work towards bringing organizational culture change, then some learnings I got. One is that change need not always begin at the top. See, I was a junior person, very junior, and yet some thoughts came to me. I followed those thoughts up, took some initiatives and all that. So change need not always begin at the top, but involvement and support of top management is a must for achieving any major organizational change. So initiation can come from any level, but support from the top is essential. Then second lesson was that when the situation has gone bad, change in people and acknowledgement of mistakes is important for restoring trust. Because very often trust is the issue, and for restoring that, past mistakes is important to accept. Um, Third lesson learned was there is a need that just good intentions don't work. You have to provide platforms for positive elements to come together. So, like we provided this human relations at work platform. So the positive elements came together, then small group activity. So that is the role of management, to provide platforms for people to come together to take initiatives and so on. Listening is very important on the part of senior management, and fortunately, our management in Tata Motors was very good in this, listening to the positive suggestions and acting quickly to support their ideas and implement some of the good ideas which came from even ordinary workers. And last lesson was that the organization must provide an institutional system or process to firmly anchor the change. So it may require training of all the people concerned and so on. And recognition. So good work needs to be recognized. So when good work is recognized, that becomes a positive reinforcement. So these are the roles of the management and the system, and initiatives can come from anywhere. So I spent 14 years there, and this was one of the big foundational experience for me of helping a large organization change its culture from a culture of mistrust and confrontations to cooperation and collaborating for the larger good. But there was a very interesting small episode I must mention, that this company was also running some schools. So based on the work that myself, or rather the work which was done in the company, the company management said, can you take charge of this school? It was a school with 3,300 students. It had lots of problems. And why the problems? Because when we talk of organizational cultures, they are often islands in a larger surrounding culture. So in the case of this school, the school was an organization, but around it was this company culture. And the company culture I just described to you had all these confrontations and all that. So that had infiltrated into the school environment. And there was a lot of internal squabblings and things happening. So my boss and I, both of us from human resources area, were told, can you take charge of the school and turn it around? So we spent 4 years, managing this school parallelly with our other job. And it was very interesting because my boss also was part of initiatives of change. So we both said, let's take up this challenge, to see whether our principles of initiatives of change can be applied. So there was groupism amongst teachers, and teaching was suffering and whatnot. Won't go into details. So, and the parents were extremely unhappy. The parents were very often union leaders who used to come and behave in a very aggressive way in the school. So this was the situation. But what my boss and I did a lot of listening. We called parents, we had them in groups, we listen to what they had to say. There were a lot of grievances which are genuine. Then we listened to the teachers. They had also many grievances which were genuine, and we made a note, and anything which could be quickly acted upon and corrected was done. Anyway, without going into much detail, there was a sea change which came about in the functioning of the school, and which became a talk of the town actually. But I would hesitate to call it transformation. And I thought I'll just check with you and ask you, is transformation the same as change? We sometimes use these two words. Is there a difference between transformation and change? Anyone?
Is anyone
Namaste.
Yeah.
Namaste, sir. This is Smita here.
Hello.
Namaste, ma'am. Yeah. So what I feel, my understanding says that yes, there is a difference between a change and a transformation. So when I talk about change, I'm trying to change something, maybe some policy or my way of working. And transformation is something which is very internal, you yourself transform your own beliefs, your personality due to the change you have brought. And also you bring that transformation amongst the people around you.
Very good.
So that is what I feel is the difference between change and transformation.
Very good. Very good.
So we have, thank you, Smita ma'am. We have a response in the chat box. Should I read it out for you?
Yeah, please.
From Mr. Willie Broad. He says transformation is more permanent. Change will bring about transformation. Ms. Rainey says change could be temporary. Transformation is long-lasting. I would also like to add here, again, in terms of time. So change is probably time-specific and is a type of a quick fix to an issue. And it's mostly an external issue. But transformation is more to do with the human beings themselves, the people themselves, and here the change is for a very long term. It's in fact a dynamic and complex process.
Yeah, one more view. Yeah, one more view.
Great. Namaste, sir. Namaste, ma'am. I would say change is the process to reach to the transformation. It is the process that you carry on to reach to the transformation. That is what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Good, good. I think each of you has made a valid point, and I will only add that change can sometimes reverse, whereas transformation is permanent, more permanent, I would say, more lasting, because in transformation, the beliefs and assumptions, which are the fundamentals of a culture, also undergo change. The internal beliefs and assumptions. Like, for example, in the case of the Tata Motors experience, the assumption or a belief that was largely held, I found in the management towards the workers was they will always be irresponsible. That changed. Similarly, amongst the workers, the assumption and belief that managements only exploit, that changed. So that kind of a change, which is at a more fundamental level, is transformation, because it doesn't reverse, readily. So yeah, just thought to. But change is in a way a stepping stone. Yeah.
I just wanted to check if you are able to access the chat, because there are participants who are responding to this.
I see.
Should I read out to you, sir?
Yeah, because I can't read, no?
Okay, I'll do that. I'll quickly read.
Yeah.
So Mr. Willie Broad emphasizes on the word itself. It conveys the meaning transformation. Going beyond it. And Pushpendra sir says change is one hit wonder. Transformation has a wider range. Miss Nisha says it means it takes place from within. Miss Vandana says impact of change is for the time being only. Miss Nisha says it happens through inner listening. Miss Rajalakshmi says transformation is intrinsic and change may be extrinsic. Miss Paramjeet says change is applied by and transformation is accepted in.
Okay, wonderful. I'm so happy to hear all these views. Thank you so much. Yeah, just as a sort of an analogy or a metaphor, I don't know what you call it. Water turning to steam or turning to ice is change, whereas coal turning to diamond is transformation. Is the way I thought. Okay, I'll quickly move on to how much time do we have, because I just wanted to share another transformational story. How much time do we have?
So please share. We next 10 minutes is not an issue, and even if it stretches a little beyond it, it's fine.
Okay, I'll apologize in advance if anybody is inconvenienced. But,
so we must thank, you are sparing your time to share this wisdom with us.
Thank you. So my next transformational experience was at my second company called Thermax in Pune. Again, I worked there also for 14 years. Seems to be a 14 type of situation. Here, the situation was something else. And it required to bring about a culture of interdepartmental collaboration. Just briefly, this is India's leading company in energy and environment, famous for its boilers, water treatment, air pollution control, industry equipment. When I joined, it had 2,000 employees, a company with very good values. This is another interesting. Tatas have very good values, and yet they had that situation. This company also very good values, but again there was a situation. The departmental teams or functional teams, they were working like silos. And whenever something went wrong, like a customer complaint came, there would be all kinds of blaming between sales, production, engineering, purchase, finance, like their departments. So as a result, customers' needs would not get properly addressed. Customer relations had suffering. So I was the training manager there, and I had started to think what can be done to change this culture. And there was some, again, this inner voice which guides you, because you can do a bit of reading or asking others, but finally you have to come up with some solutions yourself. So this is where the inner voice helps. So I was able to design. I did some reading also. Incidentally, there's some reading which helps, in many of these situations. So there was a 3-stage process. So there were these departments, 5 of them, always blaming and so on whenever something went wrong. So the design of this intervention was that we took sets of people from each of these departments, and they became the teams with which we worked. So the first step was that each team was encouraged to share what feelings and images they hold of the other departments. So because there's a principle here is that the way we behave with others is guided by the image we hold of those people. And very often the image is not the same as what the real person is or the real people are. So this was the principle that first let's deal with these images. And we did some very innovative work. Like they were asked to draw pictures of how they experience the others, and also pictures of how they think others experience them. So I'll just give you some samples in the form of photos. So, like for example, sales was experienced as a tiger, always attacking by some other department. Production department was experienced as a tortoise, that very slow moving. They take their own time, engineering was experienced as a chameleon. I'm just giving you some samples. That these people, they say, yeah, it is possible, and then after some days they say, no, it is not possible, or they change the costing. Um, the purchase department was experienced as an elephant. That they are slow moving. You never know when the actually elephants move very fast anyway. This and then finance was experienced as a kind of a snake. Never know when they will bite. So anyway, so there were sessions in which these images were presented to the other department, and there was sometimes quite an uproar. How can you think of us like that? But the idea was that what is held in the mind should be out, and then there should be dialogue. So this was the process. So first, diffuse images which we hold of the other department, and they also share with you. So it's not one way; it's two way, and then they discuss why. So in that process of dialogue, they will come up with, what you did this and that, and how as a result we had so many troubles. So all these things are cleared. One may say, clearing the air of the past was an important process in this culture change. Then
so if I may just
yes.
ask here.
Yes.
So I think it requires a huge deal of courage, first
Yes.
of all, to
Yes.
speak in front of each other. Second,
Right.
to be able to quietly listen. But like you said, I was expecting there would be uproars
Yes.
and a lot of heated arguments. So it
Right.
requires a lot of mature handling of such facilitation process.
So our role, myself and my HR colleagues, this was designed by us in HR. We had to play facilitator role with certain amount of skill. And so first we had to prepare each team to not only present what they feel about the other, but also try to listen to what they have to present to you.
Right.
So we had to do preparatory work. I'm just giving a very quick sort of run through the process. So, but it is an involved process. But I'm just saying that this is a very important stage if you want to bring change. Second is, so what we did was,
if I see a corollary in school systems, it's the teaching and the non-teaching departments who might have such thoughts about each other, and interdepartmental, of course. An HR can have a problem with accounts can have an admission officer. On various processes they work together, and ultimately they try to pass on the buck when it
also
comes
the management, the trustees, and the staff, the teachers. So such parallels are possible. That is why I'm sharing.
And in fact, I feel that it can be also related to a class culture. It's up to the teachers to see how they will apply this to a class culture.
Correct. So you may consider such parallels and find this useful. So first part is just the feelings have to be dealt with. Second part was to actually get down to business, which is stage 2. What are your expectations from us and what are our expectations from you? So each department was encouraged to prepare charts, make presentations, and then, through the process of dialogue, arrive at what we call in business service level agreement, saying that we commit to do this, and each side says we commit to do this. And also in the process, learn to appreciate positive contributions of the other, because everything is not negative about them. So our facilitation would also encourage them that, but haven't they done something right also for you? So, they have done. So this sort of thing has to be brought out, and there are charts and there are presentations, and so this is a very business-like kind of a component of this change process. And last stage was that you have made commitments, but they have to be reviewed. And what is the progress? Are there more difficulties? How do we bring everyone together to resolve issues and also celebrate successes? So that was a very important part of it, that to celebrate successes. And the transformation which happened, this is in brief, summary of the transformation. The negative images of the the negative images of other departments which were carried in people's minds from the past were dissolved. Positive contributions of the other were acknowledged. One side shortcomings, own side shortcomings were, means the departments also accepted, yeah, these have been shortcomings from our side, like we have not provided information on time, or we have not kept you informed. Then commitments made to collaborate, there were tangible results of this transformation. The commitments which came out of this exercise released the hidden capacities, and the business turned around. It used to barely be profitable, and its profits grew 1.5 times in 1 year of this transformation, within 1 year of this work, transformational work. And then HR, as I was saying somewhere, policies of HR can make a big difference. So normally policies of HR only reward individuals, but we introduced team rewards, where a team which is from 2-3 different departments which work together to achieve something for the organization could be jointly awarded, which was not in the policy manual of the company. So we brought about a team reward policy, which encouraged more teamwork, because one of the cultural transformations was the team working approach rather than. So this is the thing. And last, this is probably my last slide, or second last. How can we recognize dysfunctionalities in our present culture? There's a very, very famous thinker, management thinker, author, Professor Sumantra Ghoshal. He used a very interesting phrase. He said that there's something called smell of the place. When you walk into an organization or the premises of an organization, you can almost smell the culture. You can smell it in the hum of the place, in the look in the people's eyes, in how they walk, how people in this organization walking about, look in their eyes, the hum, general hum. He called it the smell of the place. So in some organizations, when you walk in, you feel things are really good out here. In some places, you feel there's tension out here. So there is something called smell of the place. So how do we recognize the dysfunctionalities? And it is sometimes a good idea to listen to outsiders and ask, or those who are new in the organization can more easily smell the culture. So one thing I strongly advocate, I've advocated in my roles, I worked at very senior levels, like I was vice president in 3 companies in HR area. So listening to new members on the staff during their induction can be very helpful, because these new members can see what those who have been around for quite a while have stopped seeing. So this is something that even in your school systems, you may like to, whenever you have engaged a new staff, teaching or non-teaching, at the management level, make it a point to meet that person after 2-3 months and ask, how do you feel out here? What do you feel is good? What do you feel is not okay? So the new people can be more perceptive at times about these things. So with that, I have ended what I wanted to share. And thank you so much, everyone. Let me reconnect.
So it was such a wisdom-packed session. Each slide full of such insights. I think we all can find how and where to apply this if we use our own creativity. In such a simple way, you spoke what you have done is transformed cultures. But this humility, the simplicity with which you present makes it sound it is simple. I know it's a huge task, and you have done it just because of your sheer dedication and commitment to any task that you take up. Whether we have understood how it's about the small hinges who are more important, the change, you don't have to wait for people at the top to think of required change. There should be communication so that everyone in the organization feels free to approach and express what they feel is the required change. Then how the teams can collaborate. It's not just the top management who is just going to have a magic wand, waved and the change would happen. It's about interdepartmental collaboration. It is about individual change and transformation. It is the ability to look within, to appreciate others, to see where we can correct ourselves, work together as a team. All the while, what I've understood is bringing everyone in alignment with the vision, the shared vision. All this ultimately will help everyone share that common vision and get over these basic thoughts of become better ourselves, help others also do their job better. Presented in such a beautiful, simple manner with absolutely relatable relations and the cultures. I loved the quote that you have picked up towards the end, the hum, the look in the eyes. And I am reminded of a very senior person I've worked with as a teacher. And he used to say, the tone of the school, feel the tone of the school. I had once asked as the principal about, how to know the school's culture. And he says there is a tone. You should know the school tone. And like a chef knows by touching one grain of rice, how is the rice cooked? Similarly, there is a tone, there is a texture, there is a smell, there is, to what extent it is ripe, unripe, and what it needs. Right. So beautiful. It reminded me of that learning.
Well,
I think it was so beautifully presented that I don't need to summarize. But if you allow, we would ask our participants to express their thoughts if they have any concerns, thoughts, questions.
Sure. If time is there, then
sir.
Yes, Pushpendra.
I just want to just say thank you to you and for bringing Kiran sir with us. I'm really happy that I am part of this session. Thank you so much, sir. This was really, really important for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And what do you do, Pushpendra? What is your role?
Sir, I'm a librarian in the school.
Ah, wonderful. You can have all the right books there for people to study organization culture.
I have made a note of the mega book that you recommended. Yes. And I'm going to read about it and pass it on to people as well. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, Pushpendra. Others with any thoughts on the same? So I think everyone is an appreciative mood. And we all understand you deserve all the appreciation. Thank you so much, sir. This was just a 1 hour session, but it has had a very deep effect on us. It's a small attempt to express our gratitude through this short video. Everyone, please pin on marketing head presentation. We extend our gratitude and send best wishes on behalf of Ramratna International School to our erudite speaker, Mr. Kiran Gandhi, and to all our fellow Aadharshila speakers and facilitators, educators, teachers, school leaders. It has been a great session. Looking forward to meeting you all again at the 70th episode of Aadharshila Talks RRIS.